Alright, what's up y'all, it's LakerFan here. As I was about to title today's video, we're interviewing Joe Knows. It's going to get into live com very quickly, so we'll get right to that in just a second. I just wanted to say, shout out to Joe. He got access to go to the community day and obviously played the game early, so I, from the outside looking in, as I didn't, am going to be interviewing him from our perspective, as in me and you, the viewer, and he is going to be answering a lot of questions. Not to mention, we're going to be bantering a lot back and forth between predictions of Pro-Am, what the builder is going to be looking like, your guys' impression on the builder, and just my questions from the outside looking in. But yeah, in case some of you guys don't know our dynamic or relationship, we go back a long way, like all the way back to 2K17. I mean, I met him like right after his first big blow up video. This 2K17 dictionary video absolutely was one of the bangers back then. And then as you can see, our little collab right here. So we've known each other for as long as we've both doing content, nearly, besides a couple months, and we've been homies ever since. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, feel free to drop a like, sub if you're new, turn on noties, all the good stuff, and like always, try to 1,000 likes. Shout out to Joe again. Feel free to go sub to him if you somehow haven't. Yeah, sub to me. And other than that, we're gonna get straight into it. Either way, for the most part, yeah, it's more of like an interview, like podcast sort of feel type stuff. So, all right, cool. So yeah, the first question was what we were just talking about a little bit before recording. What is the biggest challenge people will face in the 24 builder?
It's going to be accepting the fact that you're not going to have everything. Like in 23, I think we figured out what worked and what didn't, and the fact that we could cheat attributes like, for example, speed with ball, you know, only needing 75 to get the best dribble style in the game.
Yep.
That's not really the case anymore, the way attributes tie together, and the fact that they're a lot more limited in terms of what attributes you can get. As a whole, so it's almost like a thing where you can be elite in 2 categories and then you're nothing in the other 2, or you could be elite in 1 and kind of average in 2 and then you're nothing in the 3rd, or you could just be average at everything. So
yeah,
I think
that's music to my ears too, obviously, with the way the builder works. I mean, yeah, so it feels like we're getting more on like some specialist kind of 2K19 vibes essentially, but maybe it's a little more like freedom than it was back then, where obviously you'd have to pick like pie charts. You'd be very restricted to, this badge is all you're going to get with a pie chart like this. Whereas now, it's almost like, I would even argue it's almost like freely customizable percentages on pie charts, pretty much. Which is low-key what we asked for a long time ago, pretty much. But
yeah, it's just instead of setting the percentages or setting how much of each, like, double archetype you would do if it was a 19 reference, now it's like, I mean, you can have like one really good stat in each category. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
facts.
I could just go like 92 perimeter defense on a build, for example, and not put up anything else on defense. Obviously, a few attributes would go up as well, but they would be in like the 50s or whatever. And then you could try to put it else out, put attributes elsewhere. But yeah, it's definitely an adjustment in terms of, I was comparing my 24 like community day builds to like my 23 builds, and I'm like, damn, these 24 builds look trash compared to the 23
yeah, they definitely
ones.
do.
But it's like, that's just how the builder is now.
Yeah, you can see that obviously, and I know a lot of people have mentioned like don't even go into the 23 builder and try and like recreate these builds or like recreate what you're like used to. But low-key, it does give some reference, because I've seen a lot of them when like either I do it or other people do it. They end up at about 92 overall for some of them.
Yep.
Some are different though too. I'm not sure where exactly that like discrepancy is for in the builder, like what's weighing more heavily or not. I saw Joey actually posted a video on Twitter or something like that was showing or no, it was just one of his YouTube videos. He showed that finishing maybe weighs a little bit more now, because he was like replicating them over and kind of just being all hypothetical with it, right? Showing that finishing was like costing more as opposed to like, let's say, shooting and playmaking. It like narrowed the gap between 23 and 24 for like the same exact ratings being applied to the build, essentially. So it's not factual, but that was just some speculation. You know what's funny too? I think people are just from the outside looking in, and what I've like started to pick up on my lack of like understanding of the builder early on. I think some people are gonna forget, like, bro, you don't even have to worry about like badge point spending. Like, if you get the ball handle for like speed booster, Hoff ankle breaker just comes with it. And like, if you're able to do what you have to do to maintain the badge level being at that level as is, then like, yeah, you don't even have to worry about like, oh, ankle breaker is not worth spending the points for. That's just something that people are going to naturally have now. And that's why it feels sort of in reference to 2K19, because I think that's the last time we even had some badge system like that, where in 20 you had to apply the badges. Yeah, like in 20, if you picked a pie chart like a green, yellow, you would get all those badges available to you on Hall of Fame, but you'd have to pick which ones you wanted to spend 4. And then anything past that with like, 21, 22, 23, it's been pretty much the same builder feel for the most part, So
Yeah, it's kind of like what I said before, where it's like you can just like put one attribute up in a category. Like I could just put up whatever it is, like 93 perimeter defense and get gold clamps, and I will have gold clamps even if I don't have much defense elsewhere. If it's literally I just have good perimeter defense, that's it. I can have that gold clamps, gold challenger, and all the other things I unlock, as opposed to where before. If you did that, you'd be like, well, I need to put up my block, my steal, my rebound, because I don't even have enough badge points to unlock a tier 3 badge. But it's not like that anymore.
That's a good point too. Yeah, when you compare it in reference to 23. Yep. It's funny you say that too. I'm actually kind of like planning to maybe do something like that, where I'm gonna shoot for like the 94 prim that gives like the Hoff Challenger and all those like really good badges, but maybe in Park, play a little bit more conservatively with the steal and just go 60 for like Bronze Interceptor pretty much, and just like, and yeah, I've seen that that's like capable to be done too. So, and you said, you're not worried about badge points here and there. Locks don't have to worry about throwing D-board miscellaneously randomly to get enough badge points, quote unquote, for their perimeter related ones. Like last year before the core patterns dropped, of like the double defense, the pure locks had to invest like a ton into their like et ceteras of the defensive ratings just so they could get all those tier 4s, and that's gone too, obviously too. Not entirely, you know what I mean though, like the whole points essentially. Absolutely. But badge tiering, whole different story. It's not really important to talk about right now though. So I was gonna transition into this one too. So me and you have already talked a little bit of the whole finesse versus power slashers. Not even a lot though. You just brought it up that I mentioned it in my video. But I'm curious what you think of like that narrative of those two versus each other. Like not even really necessarily which one's better, but just what you think of, like, let's say both.
Yeah, I mean, I understand both. Obviously it's like you have to pick what side are you on, and I'm kind of like sitting on the fence where I'm like, okay, I agree. Strength has never mattered on a ball handler, and that's where my brain goes every time I think about it. But then like the other flip side of the argument is, well, they never had playmaking badges that are tied to strength, and I know some of them are classified as finishing badges, but like Bulldozer, in my opinion, is like a playmaking badge because it activates
whereas like physical handles
when you're dribbling, right?
Is like physical actually handles, a playmaking,
exactly. And I'm not really talking categories, I just mean when they trigger. And like, yeah, Bulldozer does give you those bully animations, but essentially the problem with bully was you had to go up with a layup to activate the badge. But now Bulldozer, you're just running up the court, and a lock, or it doesn't have to be a lock, a defender tries to get in your way. Essentially, Bulldozer allows you to just throw them out of the way. Like, that was not the case with Bully. So I do understand that side of it, and I also understand the other side where it's like speed has always been more valuable in a ball handler on 2K since 2K has existed. So I don't really know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's really hard to like say like what I plan on doing, because I don't know what I plan on doing. I want to actually play the game a little bit and see. But what I will say in terms of strength is, on a big man, it mattered in 23 and it will matter in 24, 100%.
So again, to give the outside looking in perspective of kind of how I've analyzed some things, I'm seeing like 84 strength gives just enough for the silver Bulldozer, right? And also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you needed something around that to get the Hoff physical handles too. So if you have 80 ball handle plus, I think it was like 83-ish strength or something like that, you would get Hall of Fame physical handles. So to me, I feel like that's debatably already enough, in my opinion. Now, again, I haven't played the game. Neither have you enough to like know whether that's a legitimate answer to that or not, right? But speculating, I feel like that's like the 84 sounds like a really good sweet spot to play if you're on like one of those kind of hybrid like slasher, but you still want to be a good ball handler and you don't want to have like 6-gate excel or something like that type stuff.
Right.
And same with like the playmaking caps of like where you would get the badges, bro. It seemed like the steep slope from, like, you mentioned it in your video from day one, I think, or even just the LeBron build, how the steep slope from silver to gold is so like ridiculous. It's like huge, you know what I mean, between speed booster and blow by and stuff like that. So
you start having to put 2 or 3 categories into the 90s. That is like very very expensive in the build.
Yeah, and that, what's funny? Okay, so I have another topic. It was gonna be a little bit later, but let's just segue into that right now. The shooting guard debate of Pro-Am, right? And just, we'll talk Pro-Am in general for a second here. So my issue with the 2 guards is that steep slope that we're talking about is why it's gonna be hard for them to bridge the gap between being a secondary ball handler, right? And when people say that, like the 2BH, right? That means like they're going to be a moderately decent ball handler, but they still need to provide defense from that wing spot too. I'm worried for their sake that that's not really going to be a thing, because they're going to have to invest really deep into the playmaking to get that gold level of like playmaking. Still have, 92-3 like in itself sounds good, but that's still only silver limitless, like, and then I mean, you're dealing with the fact that you're going to be on the hash and you have to be a good secondary ball handler, yet still guard another guy that's built exactly like that. So your defense might not be good enough to match that. Because I'm rambling a little bit here, but even the gap between bronze and silver defensive badges was huge too. I was seeing like you have to be mid to high 80s for most silver defensive badges, and bronze was maybe affordable at like low 70s, stuff like that.
Right.
So,
and in terms of prom, we're not talking like ranked prom. We're talking like top, like
like the comp
league.
Yeah.
Okay, comp prom. Okay. Yeah. So it is difficult to say, obviously, because neither of us have played the game enough. But when it comes to like those top leagues, the funny thing is it's very copycat, as you know. Like whoever wins the first HOF or the first WR, like everyone will copy that until like somebody beats that, and then once someone beats that, they'll copy the next thing, and basically it goes from there. So I mean, judging by what I've seen in terms of builder, and I think what a lot of teams will start with is like the all-offensive small point guard, and next to him some type of either like 96 or 99 like 3-and-D.
Agreed.
Like Klay Thompson type of two guard that will just completely space the floor. You can set off balls for him. You can dex. He can wraps. He can catch it in long run and just drag a defender out and force a rotation. Those type of things. I don't think it's going to be like in 23 how there was two like elite ball handlers on every team. I think it's going to be more primarily on one. I think the centers will be between 6'11" to 7'1" insides, and then you'll have and the center will guard the PNR, I think, in the better teams, and then the other, like the corner to corners, will be like essentially like the 6'9", 6'10", like shooting, like swing players. I think that's what teams are going to try.
That's another very intriguing like spot of Pro-Am 2 is the 4 and 5 talk of like who's going to guard what. Because like me and Tonic have been kind of discussing it a little bit, and I'm thinking like for our example, maybe we'll invest a lot more offense into Tonic as a 4 if we're also going to go with, like exactly you said, the kind of 3-and-D 2 guard that's got like 96-3 for, gold limitless pretty much, and to be like a real consistent like sniper with that and provide on the defensive end. So what I'm trying to get at is lack of offense from our 2. We're maybe planning to invest a lot more into Tonic at the 4 in the corner, and then maybe my build is more purely finishing and defense oriented, so I can still play the PNRD like back end essentially. And then
I mean, like I said, it's very copycat. All it takes is like, let's say it does start like that, and then some team comes out with a 7-3 and they're letting like an actual back end guard the PNR, and they win the next league. Like everyone's gonna switch to that. I mean, there's very rarely like a team that wins early on in the game and then people don't copy their style. I mean, like, okay, like my team, when we like really got together like in whatever it was, like February, and then we started like winning a lot of stuff, like it was so late in the year, and people
it was too late for half them dudes.
They already said, you know what, like the 2K League isn't gonna allow like the 5-out to really be super viable, because like, you're not gonna have the build I had running point guard in the 2K League. They don't allow it. So teams were like, well, I'm trying to make the league, so why, players were like, I'm trying to make the league, so why would I run that system? Which I completely understand. But early in the game, like, it's fair game. Everyone's gonna run whatever, like, they're not worried about like the league. They want to win in pre-draft, so it's very, very copycat.
Yeah, so that's a fun topic too, I guess. While we're still on the Pro-Am debate for just a little bit longer, we'll move to something else after that. But a little bit of intrigue to just talk about our own styles, right? Like, so for instance, with 5-out, and you can embrace this if you want to, whether like how you truly feel about it. I'm not trying to like, be like, Joe, you're patched. But I'm curious what you think as far as like the ball handlers like around, or if you would segue, if you would move to like a smaller guard to try and run 5-out, and like, like for instance, that grinding build, if you saw that, how he had like 93, 92. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just interested to see where your thoughts are on the 5-out side of things of Pro-Am, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason I did 5-out this year was because nobody was doing it. So, like, I wanted to do something that would, like, be unique for YouTube. And it just ended up, like, at first I started it just literally, I was going to play one league and just do content with it. And then, like, we ended up, becoming pretty
killing
damn
everybody.
good. Yeah, like, they ended up getting really good. So I was like, well, fuck, I might as well like sweat now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this year, it really comes down to kind of what we talked about before we started like recording. Was like, is there a good dribble style for big guards? Is Silver Speed Booster going to be enough for big guards to actually like beat somebody off the dribble? And are those strength badges in terms of like the bulldozer, physical handles, all that, are they actually going to be effective, or is it going to be another bully situation where it's like, yeah, it's the idea of it is cool, but in terms of against competitive players and teams, it's not effective.
Yeah.
I think it's possible, especially because if you do run a 5-out, like you could have, like we said, those specialty like 3 and D guys on the hashes, and that would allow you to have essentially 2 really good defensive guards, but also lethal from distance, and that would open up a lot of space. So I think it's possible, but it really comes down to what they allow how they allow the big guards to move, and are the dribble animations that they unlock good enough to actually beat good lockdowns.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I think there's one more thing that actually goes for the argument of the 5-out. If you are on some like Hoff physical handles kind of deal, or even for instance like the bulldozer as well. A lot of these locks of what I'm seeing that they're planning to do, right? Because obviously, you know, the dudes are already like mad that they can't even put block on their freaking lock, you know? Because like if you're gonna go all out for the 99 prim, 99 steel, it's so OD expensive for that. They can't afford like block even, or they're going 25 interior D, you know, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe they'll put their
Jono's
back end on you.
The
But
Jono's lock does have 99 steel, 99 perimeter, and 82 block, but you know.
okay, I got you. Okay, but yeah, you get what I'm saying though. Like for instance, I feel like a ton of on balls are gonna end up with like low interior, terrible block, you know, just like no strength for that matter either. Or if they do have strength, my bad, because they will get strength for clamps, right? But they're not gonna get that style of strength that's gonna give them immovable enforcer or anything like that, you know. So I guess that's where I'm intrigued, because then maybe the bully aspect or the physical handles, or if you maybe mesh your styles and go with like a LeBron that can like post score, like, you know what I mean, stuff like that. That's where things get kind of dirty.
I don't know if we played against each other in 20, or if maybe you just watched or whatever, you watched us play, but that was kind of how I played it in 20. Like I had post control on my 6, I think it was a 6, 7 and 3/4, because I did like the metric thing.
Okay, but, yeah, I got you.
And essentially, yeah, like I would, if they had a 6-5 lock on me, I would essentially post them a lot of the time. And if they, you know, played with a bigger lock, then I would ISO them, and it was kind of just like taking advantage of those mismatches, but a lot of it was in the post. So it's like, that is true. You know, if locks are only able to put up, let's say, even like I think on my 82 block one, I had like 72 interior, which is solid. But if I make a build with 90 something strength and 90 something post control,
yeah,
well,
it's
then
no post move lockdown. Like
right,
that's not going to counter it. Yeah, exactly.
Now it's like, oh well, you can't move quick. It's like, okay, but I could literally post spin you into oblivion. Like, okay, now they put the center on you. Okay, now
you're dotting rotations too.
Dotting rotations, all that. So it's like you could take advantage of that, but I think it really comes down to do those things. I gotta at least be quick enough to get the ball up the court and beat the press and all that. So I think that is a big factor in it. And also a thing to note too is on a 6-8 you can't get gold unpluckable with your ball handle, but you could get it with your post control, and that would be huge in terms of dealing with those 99 steel locks.
Good point. I guess, and you're saying to get that up to gold, right? Because like because Hall of Fame, because Hall of Fame is not accessible with
only
the
ball handle.
Yep.
Hall of
you know
Fame
what else? What else kind of goes for that too? Of like the more things you have in your bag, and this is why I want to like tell people too. The more things you have in your bag as an offensive player in this game, you don't have to pick and choose anymore. Like for instance, going into a Pro-Am matchup last year, if you wanted to play like that, Joe, you would like, you know, come out with like a badge loadout. You'd be like, well, if they have a big lock, there's no point in me having post badges. Yeah, exactly. Whereas now, the more you have in your bag, like if you see that matchup you can hunt on a game-to-game basis, at that point, then you have that in your bag. You don't have to be selective with what you're like, you know, pick and choosing for what you have with your badges accessible. So that's another thing that speaks to that too.
You have all your badges, so you're ready for whatever is you're capable of doing everything that your build allows all the time.
As long as you maintain the badge levels, which to my hearing, it sounds like people, at least at like 2K, like Zach Timmerman and stuff, right? They're trying to temper the temper the worry from people. They're like, you're going to be able to keep this stuff a little bit more than you guys think. Not to mention the floor setters and stuff like that, where you can keep the badges at gold and silver and stuff like that too. Never drops below bronze either. So seems like Hall of Fame is going to be maybe the only thing that's like hard to keep. But depending on how good you are, it also probably won't be a big issue. But yeah. So okay, next question was going to be about this is what I captioned it: dunk meter versus layup meter thoughts. Do layups look easier to you than dunk meter?
Standing layups for sure easier
Yeah,
than
they look
standing
OD
dunk meter
for sure.
Yep. Yeah, if you get good position, that layup meter for standing layups when you have a good close shot is huge. It's massive. In terms of dunk meter and layup meter, open dunks, open layups, both relatively easy.
I thought so too. Yep.
Yep. From what I felt, again, it's going against the computer, and I feel like the computer doesn't jump for blocks a lot. They play for contest a lot, and I think that was part of the reason we saw like so many people making these insane layups, and we're like, "Yo, what's going on?" I think when people, you play a human, and they're definitely more prone to
responsive. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And they're gonna. Some people they don't even play hands up ever. They just spam Y and hope for the best. Like I think that's gonna make like layups a bit more contested and harder to time. But I like the changes for sure. Like I love the fact that now even if I say, oh, I'm gonna meter dunk this, and then it's like, well, crap, nobody's there. I better not miss time. It's like it's the window's huge. Like you should be able to time.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, hey, to come back real quick to the Pro-Am debate, I was arguing that might be a big deal for 5-out. I was telling my boys about that. How I know they say the meter size will change dependent on the defense that's being played, but for late contests, like droppers, let's say, right, if people want to rotate on you and send the big off the corner, I'm not going to lie, it still seemed pretty forgiving in terms of, like, when you took off for the dunk and you were taking off with that meter saying you were open, it didn't seem like it was like, oh, shit, here comes the 7'3", 99 block, 99 interior who's going to ruin this, like, dunk, on everything. Right. Anything like that. So I was thinking that might be another big thing with 5-out is the more spacing you have off those bigs and forcing those bigs to not stay like, dropped like you would in a pick and roll offense, that you really might be able to like just make them as irritated as they have been in every other year, like from 21 to 22 to 23, late arriving help defenders in quote unquote bad position when you're taking off of that dunk. It generally just doesn't work very good, and it seemed like it wasn't working very good. It was just CPUs at the end of the day, right? So it is what it is. But
right,
yeah, it did still seem like those meter sizes were pretty big for like late help defenders, though. So, but yeah, good insight though on the whole meter versus like layups versus dunks. I agree. CPUs, they just didn't look like they were jumping at stuff very much. I also felt from spectator mode that, people are sitting here judging Giannis, but like that's the whole freak in itself, right? But but on that note, it looks like size on layups, even driving, is like a huge deal. Like him being so much freaking bigger than like all those people. Like even let's say Zion going at Giannis versus Giannis going at Zion. Like Giannis would make so many more contested layups than Zion, obviously, right? But
he's just laying it over him essentially.
Yeah, so and I know from years past, because I've dealt with this before, masher does indeed work on driving lays. I've experienced it in previous years, whether I'm like a 6'9" that only has it on bronze, but like I'm going at a 6'1" guard. If he yanks me out of the dunk meter and puts me into a layup, masher will pop up if I like make it. So yeah, I mean, for people that want to make like a 7-foot kind of Giannis like driving lay, standing lay, just every like freaky thing you could possibly put, I think like the driving lays were looking crazy in terms of the size overpowering, to say pretty much.
Yeah, and I also think like obviously the higher your attribute, the bigger the green window will be. So
yeah,
you combine size with a high attribute, it's definitely something that I didn't get a dunk. Well, it doesn't matter. You have a layup meter that's half the freaking layup meter, half the thing is green, so who cares? You're gonna make it anyways.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, so we already touched on this a little bit, but I want to like go into detail a little bit more, the post game specifically. So we talked about it in like the LeBron style, right? But like that's a whole different entity of comparing that to like the super freak 7-3. Like let's talk about that a little bit, like post score stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like every year they're really good, and there's multiple reasons why they're good. One is just game mechanics, of course, but two, and I don't think people are willing to accept this, but it's like nobody makes a build to stop a post score. Like everybody makes like I want to shoot threes, I want to play, even if it's I want to play defense, it's I want to get steals, I want to be able to stop rim runs. You know, no one makes like, hey, I'm gonna make a 7-3 and I'm not gonna put offense up, I'm just gonna put like high interior, high
No one
block,
makes a Rudy Gobert. Like
right. So it's
yeah.
like you're expecting this 7-3 dude with prime Kareem Abdul-Jabbar post score stats to be bothered by like your 6'7" lock or your 6'8" like ISO point forward. Like, let's be realistic, you know what I mean? Like, he decided he's gonna be slow as hell, have no ball handle, and all these no 3-pointer, all these sacrifices he made to be really elite at doing one thing.
Yep.
And he's elite at it. And you're mad, like, you know. So I don't know. And people took my clip out of context. They thought, like, when I was showing, like, the Jokic post-hops, I think people thought I was saying that the game's broken and they deserve to be contested. And I guess I didn't make it clear enough, but my brain was going the other direction, saying if a 6'11" is rising up over 2 or 3 defenders, no problem. What is a 7'3" player going to do on the 1 score? Or even on the 2's court where, you know, okay, I have a lock in the corner and you have to guard the lock because he won't miss. And I have one guy to shoot over, like, and I'm 7'3" and he's 6'9". Like, I think, yeah, it's going to be another year that if you're a skilled post scorer and you commit to the build, you're going to be the only person going to stop you is yourself. Just don't mistime your shots.
I definitely agree with what you're saying of the whole nobody makes like a build to actually stop post scores. And it's funny because, I mean, I almost feel that same way when it comes to the slasher stuff of what I do, right? Because people don't make pure rim protectors type stuff anymore because, honestly, they know what they're going to go against for the most part when they're playing park. It's going to be people that are just taking open dunks because of the fact that they can shoot. They get past them because people are respecting it too high, and they just get, like, you know, easy takes for the dunks. That's what people called the rim running, quote unquote, of, like, you know, 23 and stuff like that as well, obviously, right? But yeah, I mean, the problem is if people do make a specialty build like that, though, that, like I just said, they only will be like special for when the time comes. So I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, it's like you can call it an exploit all you want, but I will agree with what you're saying. If you're a specialty like or specialist player on offense where you do have 20-something speed or 30-something speed and you invested purely into strength, you know, I hear a lot of slashers who like kind of follow my channel complain about people who are sitting paint. And to be fair, it's a fair argument because, you know, I'm blessed with like people that I play with and I know I can trust to like take advantage of the fact that he's sagging off me. Well, I'm just going to put him in the pick and roll game then, you know, and boom, now his speed's like getting toasted. But some people don't have that, obviously. Either way, right. What I'm trying to get at here is you're the specialist build who is sacrificing your mobility and ability to guard pick and roll or things of that nature as well. Or maybe you just want to be the dude that if you're watching this video and you want to do what Joe's doing too and you're in the rec, you're just the guy that people complain is sitting in the paint and he's not guarding his guy on the 3 sometimes, you know? But
yeah, bro. Like, I mean, I think back, like, the last year I was like a full, like, even in 18 I had multiple post scorer builds, but I played on guards. 2K17 was the year, like, 90% of my games were played on a post scorer. But back then, like, there were people that made literally glass cleaning centers and even rim protecting centers. Like, they purposely made a build to play defense with, like, and not just play defense, play paint defense with. And yeah, like you said, you don't really see that anymore. And I mean, I'm sure if somebody made a 7-3 paint protector, he would have a pretty damn good chance of guarding that post scorer. But if you're going to try to guard him on your 6'8" point forward, and he's throwing you out the way and hooking over you and doing whatever he wants, I mean, can you really be that mad? Like, he sacrificed everything on his build to do one thing well, and he's doing that one thing well.
Yeah, it's ironic too because there's like a debate between like let's say real life basketball, right? It's evolved a little bit since those times, but also to be fair, the builder's been extremely different ever since 2K20. Again, like I just mentioned earlier, how we've had a lot of things you can be good at since 21, 22, 23. You could pretty much be good at everything if you wanted to for all 3 of those games.
Elite at everything.
Yeah, and in 20 it was still you could be really elite at like 2 things even still, and then like okay at another. Whereas like 19 and 18, in reference to what you're talking about, like a glass cleaning rim protector or something like that, you know, you had to do that to like be a brick wall setter. You had to do that to rebound the ball well, stuff like that. So you had to make sacrifices and be really good at shooting with 53-pointer if that's what you were going to be headed for, or just, you know, not even do it at all. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see how the game develops this year in terms of like if we do go back in time to like kind of because the playstyles of 2K, in my opinion, don't change just because of real life basketball. At the end of the day,
No,
if the
not
builder
at all.
and the gameplay fits a certain mold of basketball, we'll go back in time. We'll play like how things used to be a little bit. But
I mean, also
yeah,
to touch on what you kind of mentioned quickly, like about teammates, I say this a lot in my build videos. I always say tweak it to how you want to play, but also who you play with. You know, there's like in 2K20, my first LeBron build that I made was like basically no defense, and I just said like, listen, like my teammates are gonna have defensive builds that play with me, so it's like I can get away with it. I have two guys to cover for me, and I'm big, and I just kind of rotate and swing and put my hands up and hope for the best. But if you're someone that plays like random wreck, like no one's gonna cover for you, bro. That's like, yeah, you're on a team, but every man for himself, bro. Like, so
yeah,
don't make those builds. You know, you gotta cater it to who you're playing with. It's like, you know, if you're playing random wreck with your build, it's like you can't shoot. If you get two more people on the team that can't shoot, you guys are gonna be struggling.
yeah,
bit.
exactly.
But
yeah.
you know,
Well,
like you're gonna be playing with like a center like Tonic, who always makes a shooting
yeah,
center. You're gonna be
exactly.
playing
Yeah.
with a guard like Gucci, AK, whoever it is that they want a 3 hunt. So it's like you cater your build around who you play with, and people should do the same.
Not to cherry pick anything in that conversation either, but to the counterpoint of that argument, I have been pleasantly surprised whenever I load up on a like last year was the first time pretty much, or maybe I also did like a yellow blue pie chart like back in 20 like you were talking about as well, and had like really low defense, but last year was the first time I ever went with like a small guard, like a 6'3" or something like that with like 50 something prim. But mind you, my wingspan was still like 6'9". I was pleasantly surprised to see how the build contested the perimeter, to see how I put like 52 interior D on it too, and I was pleasantly surprised combining that with vertical.
I say it all the time, bro. I say it all the time. Defense is positioning, and like even with low attributes, like okay, sure, against the top, 0.1% of players, you might not have that great of a chance. But against 99.9% of players, if you position yourself correctly, even with low attributes, the game will reward you eventually, and you'll get the stop.
I guess my best point of what I'm talking about is your body shape is much like, or just the frame, like the wingspan and the height of your build is much more important than you think it is in terms of the no defense builds. Like with shots last year when we were playing pro am against you guys, and you could just toss it over to Swag and shoot over his head every time. That's because he's a 6'1". That's because he's a 6'1" with like a 6'1" or 6'2" wingspan.
Minimum wingspan. Yeah.
Yeah, with still no prim D and stuff like that too, and his vertical is even still terrible as well. So even if you tried to jump contest it, it's still going to be also bad as well. So yeah, there's a difference between a 6'1" with a 6'1" wingspan, no D, versus a LeBron build like you had. Like, bro, if people come and slash on the interior, you're still a big body. If you're in the right spot, you're gonna stop them from a dunk a decent bit of times. Nothing super crazy like your Rudy Gobert. But
yeah, I don't want to stick on this too long, but something I also thought about, and I'll put this little caveat in here, is like, all right, let's say I do go with a no defense, all offense, I got post control, strength, all that. What's gonna happen when I have like 40 perimeter defense but Hall of Fame immovable enforcer? Like, how's the game gonna work that out? How much bump do I get when I have Hall of Fame bumpy badge basically, but I have no perimeter and no clamps? Like,
that's a good question.
It could be something that the game goes like, whoa, he's got Hall of Fame, like let him play great defense and bump this guy all over the place. But like,
yeah, or even just strength in general. Like let's say, like you said, well, we won't stay on this topic too long, so we can just move off it right after I say this, I guess. But like, for instance, people are showing that clip of LeBron like shoving Ingram, right, like on the perimeter. I've seen it like twice, pretty much. Actually, there was two different times. One was in this little 3-3 mode, and then the other was Grinding's video where, yeah, he was just showing Bulldozer off, pretty much, right? But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, well, Brandon Ingram's probably also like 190 pounds, like, and freaking has like 40 strength probably, and LeBron's probably got like 90 with like 260, bro. Like, I mean, at some point we're not gonna just place all of this blame on a badge, like it's still gonna be like, I know things like that, strength doesn't matter, quote unquote, in the past. It would be nice
if weight mattered a bit more. I agree.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I'm just saying, like, things like that will happen in the past, even still without a badge. It's not as
100%.
blatant. It's not as blatant and like crazy, I guess, is all. But yeah,
I mean, think about Pro-Am, bro. Like with a low strength, like the first build Swag was playing on was his park build. He had a low strength. He would get dead zoned by every center when they hit the slip, and he tried to wall up, and it would just push him under the hoop, and they would go up and lay it in.
Or like box
he
outs,
remade his whole
even.
build. Yeah, even box outs. Like he had to remake his whole back end build to put strength on it, because for big men it has mattered, but it would be nice if it finally did matter for ball handlers too.
Yep. Okay. So on the note of ball handlers, actually, I have two more questions. So one is, do you feel people are overreacting to dribbling being quote unquote bad, aka like all the reaction to day? Because I will speak real quick from my personal experience of being there last year. I feel like people expecting you to be good at the game from minute one of you touching it is kind of crazy. Like I couldn't figure out how to do a dunk meter. Even like I couldn't even figure out how to get the meter to pop off for like the first, I would say 20 or 30 reps of me even doing it. So like to expect, and now here I am, I feel like I've mastered that about as much as anybody has. Like even a couple weeks in, I felt really good about it. So long story short, what I'm saying for people is I think they should temper their frustrations a little bit when it comes to how they're looking at the game playing,
100%. Like, let's think about it, bro. Like, it took, I want to say, over a month, potentially 2 months, for Steezo to essentially find out the Westbrook, put that whole video out, and then it still took time for everyone to really like start to, whatever you want to call it, abuse it, or whatever word you want to use. Like, you watch a game of top level Pro Am now, or even like a competitive 3v3 game, everyone has the Westbrook in their back pocket. Some people use it more than others. In the beginning of the game, nobody even knew what the hell that was.
Yeah,
and
facts.
Now it's just like every random you play with a 30 win percent has it on. So
Yo,
it's
you
like
want to hear
game, you got to take time to like figure the game out.
Yeah, you want to hear a funny story on that real quick? So my boy Zeke, he's like one of my IRLs that I played like 2K with at the beginning of the year, right? And bro, he actually was doing that move, but we were running pick and roll 24/7, right? It was the first week of the game. I'm not even joking, and I agree with what you're saying because nobody knew about this stuff. But this little diamond in the rough of a Westbrook moving cross like that, I was telling him because we were just running pick and roll. He was on a pure outside PG. I'm like, bro, get that out of here. Like, it ain't working for pick and roll at all. Like, this is terrible. So it's just, I guess it's ironic, that like, yeah,
ends up being like one of the most broken things in the game.
Yeah, and that
yeah,
I guess certain moves that are considered broken also don't work in some styles, like because that was my true reaction to that. I'm like, this does not work for PNR, bro. Like,
unless you're shooting crabs off it in the PNR, like
or the pullbacks. Really. We didn't know about the pullback aspect of it yet, because it was just
the snatchback out of it. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but it's gonna take people time. The biggest learning curve of every 2K is the dribbling. Like, people have to find the best animations. Some people make guard builds that don't even unlock the best animations, so then unfortunately they need to remake their build just to unlock the animations they need. I remember seeing Yampa send me gameplay when I was doing best dribble moves in the first month of 23, and he was using a combination of Trae Young and Steve Francis, and he was zooming all over the place. And I sent it to people. I said, "Bro, what am I watching?" And they were like, "Bro, what is that?"
Yeah,
but
they don't know either.
Every small guard has Steve Francis on. Like, it's just common knowledge. So you got to take time to figure out what animations work. And that's why when people are like commenting whether a build is good or not, I'm like, bro, we don't even know anything about gameplay in terms of like what works online, what animations you need, what attribute thresholds you need. In the past is like, there's the best dribble style was Michael Jordan with 75 speed with ball. So it's like, who would have guessed that a 75 speed with ball would be the best animation in the game?
Yeah.
We don't know. There could be something like that on 24, and that completely changes everything if the bigger builds can unlock that. If they can't, that also changes it, because then it's like, all right, you need to find the second best thing. It's all those things matter so much, and it's going to take, I would say, give it a month before like people really figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, ironic you mentioned that too, because I know we were talking about that before hopping on here too, and I won't say anything of like numbers or anything, but actually what I wanted to mention was how I know from playing the My League stuff that some of these people, and it looked like it too, they had the same dribble styles. Like, I'm talking Bradley Beal, he had MJ. I knew that already, or like same with let's say like I even knew like little sleeper guys, like even Caruso has MJ dribble style. It's like some weird stuff, bro. You'd never think of it. But then you look at people like James Harden. He's got really good like standstill dribble moves, his escape, his moving cross, stuff like that. But his dribble style was so garbage. Same with Dame. His dribble style was so garbage, and I could see it in the way they were both moving. Like, it's terrible. So my point is, to some people, they're like, oh, well, this is, and I'm sorry, 2K, if I'm like, calling it out for anything, but like, my thing is, they don't understand that some of these quote-unquote best dribblers, like Kyrie and Dame and Harden, they're hindered by their dribble style. It's terrible. And you'll see better dribbling and movement, I should say. You'll see better, like, speed boosting, I guess, from, like, I don't know, just complete nobodies sometimes.
I mean,
Really.
the hopes with that is that, you know, having Wolf, somebody that played 2K at the high, literally in the you know, a professional 2K league player, played 2K at the highest level, putting him on, I think he's kind of bridged that gap between saying like, okay, even though this guy in real life is a great dribbler, his animations in 2K are not the best, so they shouldn't be so highly, you know, like Steve Francis, let's say, okay, yeah, he was a really good borderline great guard, but he wasn't better than freaking like Steph Curry and Kyrie. But in the game, his size up is the best for small guards.
Yeah,
so
and he's smoothing, and I bet you.
Yeah, now it's 95 ball handle against Steve Francis. Last year,
Yo,
was
the other
85.
thing too, bro. I guarantee if I look up some film of some Steve Francis, he'll never be busting that shit out. And if I look up and I bet you Westbrook has never just glitched forward and fucking flung his body forward like 12 feet.
I know. So, you know, I think hopefully Wolf, being someone that understands 2K competitively, but also kind of on the, I guess, you know, consumer side of it now, business side of it now, working with 2K, can bridge that gap. And I think just seeing that, like Steve Francis, like size up is now 95 ball. It's literally the most elite dribble size up there is, shows that it's not just like, hey, well, you know, Jordan was a okay dribbler, let's give it 75. Like, nah, you need 89 now. Like, because that in the game, that is really good. Even though Michael Jordan wouldn't be considered like a top 5 dribbler in NBA. You know what I mean?
So yeah, that's a really good point, because that's what I was gonna say. Is it's more important that they just balance these like good animations and give them high ratings rather than to, you know, just exactly what you said. Be like, well, this is how he played IRL. Like, I mean, Curry dribble style, let's make it 94, and then not that it is, but you know what I'm saying. Then like MJ, like you said, mediocre like ball handler when it comes to like the general speaking like speed boosting style of stuff, you know, like. So instead of them overhauling it, and I would have been okay if they just literally said, well, let's make MJ still 75, but make it a bad, like, you know, make it a mediocre animation.
Yeah, it's an average dribble animation,
Like literally just swap Curry and MJ if you wanted to. But I get they have their own way of doing things and working, so I appreciate that right now it's seeming like they at least like made certain packages demand a whole lot more if they're elite. I don't know what the deal. I guess they probably did actually take quick drops out. But, you know, a theory would have been, like, let's say if they kept that in, that it should be, even though it's a two-handed freaking dunk that, like, doesn't require that much athleticism, that...
Should be 99 dunk.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm saying it should be a high requirement, though, like, just because of how, generally speaking, good it is in the game. But...
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so, last question, and I think this isn't even really a 2K thing, it's more of just us two speaking as YouTubers. If you were starting from scratch... as a 2K YouTuber today, for the, like, you know, small creators out there, what would you do? Any different outlooks or strategies, or would you repeat most of what you've done? Or do you think times have changed and it'd be harder to, like, kind of come up the same way we did, if you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think every
I know it's a loaded question, so it might be hard to...
Every creator has their own style. Like, obviously, you have your own personality, you have your own interests, you have your own way of like speaking and interacting, and obviously you got to find your own way in that. I think something that is important is obviously you don't want to just copy what's working. Like, you want to find your own lane, but you also have to make adjustments off of what you post. Like, if you post and you don't think the video did as well as you thought, well, then it's like, okay, how, like, either tweak that or try something different. And I think when you're first starting, like, you're already in a niche community. Like, your video games, and then the more niche is NBA 2K, and then now, like, I think it's important that you niche that down. Like, well, you're going to niche it down in terms of what game mode you play, let's say Park, and then niche that down again because you're starting. Like, you want to get like very specific in the beginning. Like, when I started, it was like all about post scores, and there weren't that many, but I grew like a small community just off of like people who wanted to know about post scores, wanted to see builds, want to see animations, want to see gameplay. And I built that, and then it was like, okay, how can I expand? It was like, I need to broaden what I'm doing, and then as I've gotten bigger and bigger, obviously I've gotten broader and broader. But for me, like, I'm still staying like 2K community. I'm not going to be in Walmart,
like, for sure,
pulling people's pants down and like doing some dumbass pranks.
Yeah, it's funny.
Like, that's just not me. Like, I'm gonna stay 2K, but yeah, I'm a much broader channel now than I was when it was like literally just like, hey, here's my post score. Like, watch me play some park games.
Yeah, or like maybe to you know, minimize things, not from 0 to 1,000,000, but let's say like, you know, Giuseppe, he was also doing post score stuff. He made a huge name for himself, like in terms of that aspect, right? Where he like is a post score, post Nate XE reacts to Unreal post scoring, like from him, stuff like that. Or yeah, I have my own little niche community of like the athletic finisher that turns into slasher. Once you get enough like of a following, it turns into builds, pro-am. Like you got a lot of different branches on the tree that are like growing essentially. So yeah, I definitely agree with like keep the niche really like tight and as many like yeah, as many more filters you can put on it pretty much when you're like starting off. And then yeah, I guess my I don't know if you know this too much, but my like kind of claim to my first 800 subs, I had this copy and paste message that I sent to everybody, and it was pretty much just literally like door to door selling mixtapes like type stuff where it's like yo, check my channel out. I'd like literally message them on Xbox until I get com banned for like too many messages in one day, and like I get the 24-hour suspension on it. So I guess that's my thing, hustle early on too. You know, like do things outside the box.
A lot of people did similar things. Like, you know what I mean? You gotta want it. And you gotta want it. You gotta make it happen for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't come to you. You gotta come to it. Pretty much. That's how I 100%. See it early on.
You have thousands of people trying to do essentially whatever you're trying to start. It's like you gotta find a way to separate yourself through creativity, work ethic. I mean, there's tons of different ways to go about it, but.
Yep, cool. I just want to add that, you know, at the very end, pretty much. See if for the people that are actually still here, they're definitely like, you know, in tune and tapped in with like either what we do, they, you know, love what we do, or they, you know, maybe have little aspiring dreams like what we got started off with as well. So just wanted to drop that nugget for anybody that's still watching. So yeah, appreciate you hopping on here. I will probably still chat it up a little bit after, but figured we'd outro right here. Appreciate you hopping on. Obviously all your time. Just so y'all know, I don't pay Joe to hop on here or anything like that either. He's doing this for free as a homie, so I mean, I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, of course, bro. Anytime.